Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt like something was off, but then talked yourself out of it? Or you started to say something important and suddenly felt yourself kind of pull back. It's like, no, I'm not going to say that. Or you've known deep down that something really mattered to you and then you slowly disconnect from it because it felt easier to just stay quiet or fit in or not make any waves. I don't think most people are disconnected because they lost themselves. I think most people were trained not to trust themselves in the first place. And that actually changes everything, because once you stop trusting yourself, you start looking outside yourself for permission to know what you actually already know. Like, you start overriding your own internal signals and you start to abandon yourself in these little, that may be small ways and they're socially acceptable ways, but after time, they build. Years and years of that. And then you can begin to feel disconnected even from your own life. And it's not because you're broken. It's because you've learned not to listen to yourself. Hi, I'm Lisa Steinorf. I'm an international relationship coach, and I support people who've decided to come back to their own ground and live from a place of choice and ease and confidence in themselves. And if this speaks to you, go ahead and like the video and subscribe, because these videos weave together, forming a really amazing guidance system. So I was in an interview a while back talking about connection, and somewhere in the middle of that conversation, something became very clear to me again. We are not disconnected because we lost ourselves. We're disconnected because we were gradually trained over years in big and small ways away from ourselves. And that's different. That is very different. So, for example, as little children, we come into the world and we're deeply connected. How could we not be, right? We've spent all that time in utero, in the womb of our mothers, with only ourselves. And you can see it in babies. They're not questioning whether they matter. They accept that they're the center of the world. They're not wondering if their feelings are valid or checking in if they're too much. They simply are. They're connected. And we've taught ourselves that, well, that's only for children, but that's our natural state. And then slowly, the conditioning begins, right? We hear things from parents, school, friends, whatever. Don't do that. Be quiet. That doesn't make sense. You'll understand when you're older. Be seen and not heard, right? We get these constant messages, direct and also indirect. And most of the time, our parents were not trying to harm us. Mine certainly weren't. I know they were doing the absolute best they could with what they had. But the impact, that's still there. And so you begin learning that the external world actually knows better than your internal experience. Like, you learn to distrust what feels right to you because out there said it should be different. And eventually many people stop listening to themselves altogether, right? And it's not this huge, well, I'm going to stop listening to myself now. It just happens gradually, almost invisibly, if you will. And then suddenly we're at a place where we really don't know if we can trust our decisions or what we're sensing. And this is where I think that actually the modern world has become incredibly confusing, right? Because we've been taught, actually literally taught, that disconnection is normal. That's what I said earlier about the children. Oh, that's just children. That's the way it is when you're an adult. No, it's not natural. It may be normal, but it's not natural. And we have normalized overriding ourselves. We call it being practical or professional, or in social circumstances, polite, or being successful. You have to, do what's necessary, or adaptable. But many people, I'm going to say probably even most people, are exhausted because they're constantly abandoning their own internal being. Like, they're constantly leaving themselves. And that is effortful. It's a huge amount of effort. And you can feel it in your relationships. You can feel it in your work, in rooms where everybody's smiling, but nobody feels real. Yeah? And you feel it when you say yes, while your whole being is saying, nope. And you can feel it while you keep performing competence or confidence, while inside you're actually unsure, or maybe you feel empty, right? And then people think something is wrong with them when they feel that way. but there's nothing wrong with them at all. They, like most people, have become disconnected from themselves. I mean, this sounds so elementary. It sounds almost like, how can I be disconnected from myself? But if you really break it down, and I work with hundreds, thousands of people, right, in different settings, one-on-one, groups, corporations, and it's always the same thing. People don't trust what they actually know. And I don't think that the solution is to become more performative, more optimized, branded, impressive, like all the things that we do to appear like we got it together. I honestly feel like the solution, if you will, to a lot of the woes of our world is reconnection, and connected to yourself first, right? Connected then also to whatever larger life force, spirit, nature, or grounding presence that you experience yourself as a part of. Like finding that connection as your foundation. Because the moment that you reconnect with yourself and that larger context, something starts reorganizing on its own. You can begin hearing yourself again. And I think one of the deepest misunderstandings in modern culture, in our Western colonized culture, is this idea that we are supposed to exist independently. Like my kids were raised in Europe, in the old world, if you will. And when we first moved to the United States, I remember my daughter coming home and saying, "Mama, do you realize that people here think that their families just have to be separated as soon as kids go to college and they almost never see each other again?" I mean, there are cultural norms that we've accepted as normal, as though strength means isolation, I can make it on my own, as though needing one another means weakness. But if you look at life on the planet as living beings, it doesn't work that way at all. All of life is relational. Everything affects everything. The air, the water, the systems, the families, our conversations, the energy that we bring into a room, the way that I speak to people, the way that we think about people. Like none of that exists in its own little isolated bubble, not to be touched or affecting anything else. And yet we've built entire cultures around separation, competition, comparison, hierarchy, acquisition, right? More for me and less for you. Like it's all about this segmenting out. It's really not natural, but I'm going to say it again, it's become the norm. And in my opinion, it's a tragedy because many people don't even realize how disconnected they feel, because disconnected and disconnection has become culturally rewarded. It is the norm. So you can be highly successful and profoundly disconnected from yourself at the same time. And you can achieve constantly and still feel internally lost. As I said, I work with people, I hear this a lot. And you can have status and still not feel at home inside your own life. And you can hear that a lot from the rich and famous, right? They have it all. And they feel like they have nothing. They're totally lost. Why is that? It's connection. So one of the things I spoke about in that interview was indigenous worldviews. And I want to say this carefully because I'm not indigenous by blood. I am a respectful student of indigenous wisdom and ways. And this is not about romanticizing indigenous cultures. But human beings are human beings everywhere. And many indigenous frameworks understood something that most Western cultures have completely forgotten. We are not separate from life. We are part of it. Part of the earth, part of one another, part of an interconnected system. We're not above it and we're not outside of it. We're actually inside of it. One of the lessons that I was taught by a Cree elder in Canada was the depiction of a spiral of life. And at the center of the spiral is the human being. And then coming outside that spiral are the animals. And then you have the plants. And then you have the rocks and the rivers and the mountains. And then you have the stars. And then you have the cosmos, right? Interesting thing though, the Western perspective is, well, we're at the center because we're most important. Not the case. We're actually at the center of that spiral because we, as human beings, are 100% dependent on everything else around us. Everything around us is not dependent on us. It could actually live quite better without us. But we are at the center because we need all of that, and we're part of all of that. Yeah? And everything surrounding us is allowing us to live and to thrive. And when you understand life that way, from that perspective, your choices change. How you lead changes, how you parent changes, how you do your work, how you speak changes, even how you, I'm going to say, define success, because it's certainly different how I define success today the way I used to. For me, success is who you are and how you show up. It is not something that you achieve. It stops being how much can I acquire and starts becoming how aligned am I with what is real and what is important to me, my values. And that's a very different life. So something else begins to happen when you reconnect with yourself. You naturally begin recognizing where connection exists and where it doesn't. And that can be challenging, I can tell you, because a lot of things also change, right? You start noticing the relationships that maybe drain your energy, or rooms or environments that feel constricting to you, or where you feel you can easily leave your center of ground rather than being supported to stay there, or conversations that feel performative, or paths that no longer fit. And that can be challenging, because what do you do then? But at the same time, you also start to recognize what feeds you, what nourishes you, what makes you feel alive, right? The people that you can exhale around, and conversations that feel real and invigorating, and work that feels meaningful to you according to your values. And those moments where you suddenly feel like you're present and alive again and clear, right? And that is not small. Whew, that's huge in the most real way, right? That's your life coming back into alignment. And it's an adjustment, but man, is it worth it. And I think many people ignore those moments because they've been taught to distrust them, to distrust themselves, and to distrust their interpretation of things that don't feel aligned, as well as distrusting things that do feel aligned. But all of those moments when you recognize, when you feel like it is internally aligned with who you are, they matter. And they matter, actually, in my opinion, they matter the most, because your internal system is constantly communicating with you. And the question is whether you've learned to hear it. And if you do hear it, do you listen to it? And I don't think healing is about becoming somebody else at all. I think much of healing is about remembering who you really are and being aligned with who you are as you are, not by trying to be somebody else. And remembering what you already knew before you were taught not to trust yourself. Remembering that your value was never something that you have to earn, ever. You are valuable because you are. And remembering that connection and wanting connection, seeking connection, is not weakness, it's strength. It's the most natural, healthiest way of being alive, right? And remembering that we are relational beings. It's just what is. So remembering that, maybe, just maybe, some of that exhaustion that we are feeling will fall away. And people don't need to feel like they're failing because they don't feel connected. It's just because they've spent literally years feeling disconnected from themselves while trying to get ahead in a system that rewards you for feeling disconnected. It's like crazy. So, and if that's true, then it's really not selfish to return to yourself. It's actually fundamental. Like it's your foundation, quite honestly. So all these thoughts been useful to me. I share them with you. If that resonates with you, please let me know in the comments what hit home, what means something to you, what's of use to you. And if you're interested in these deeper kinds of conversations around self-trust and human connection and grounded leadership, living from a more honest place, then go ahead and subscribe and join our growing community. Love to have you along with us. I'm Lisa, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, be well.